The hole in prison is meant to destroy you. It's weaponized. It's used to break an individual's will that to them is getting besides themselves. But I didn't care at this point. From 2003 up until now, 2006, I've been in a hole numerous times. Been there, done that. I started to get in the habit of calling it vacation because I didn't mind going back there because I needed the rest. I've always been a hustler. Behind walls, behind the prison, it never stopped. And I didn't slow down, and I needed to, especially in that environment. The goal is to get home, not stay in there. When you're hustling, you're doing things you're not supposed to, that puts you at the risk of staying in there longer. I was able to get back out the hole relatively quick. I was put under investigation, but they realized or found out that the fight between the guy that had my tickets, that was pushing them, and his cell partner had nothing to do with gambling or gambling debts. It was over the TV, something they had going on. So they let me back out. They moved me down, back out in the general population, and this was the moment, I'll never forget it. Brother Willie, just like in the movies, big 6'4", militant prison dude, dark as night, lift every weight on the weight pile. You know, I'm leaning against the wall with my homeboys. We done snuck and smoked what they call a feezy. It's basically nothing, but it is green cabbage, but dust. We thought we were doing something. And he walked over me. He said, "Hey, Life," that's my nickname. He said, "Come over here real quick, brother." He said, "If you don't mind, I just want to ask you a question." Yo, big dude like that. Like, he cool. Like, he was part of a religious community, well respected, but still, I'm like, man, what did I do? Did somebody connected to me, piss him off, do something to his people? I said, here we go. So I walk over to him, and he looked down. He said, "Hey, little bro." He said, "You don't even know who you are." I said, at first, I was like, man, what you know what I'm saying? It was a knee-jerk response. You know what I'm saying? But he said, "Hold on, man." He said, "I ain't mean it like that." He said, "I just want you to know that you got influence, man." He said, "You see the same way them brothers is following you to do negative things?" He said, "I've been down for so long. I know what's going on." He said, "They'll follow you to do right things too." And I speak on that part of the story because this is the moment that the tug of war began. I was still hustling, you know, still doing sports betting, still getting the pack in when I could, you know, nickel and diming it in there because I never really had financial support, but I knew what he was saying was true. Like, I felt it in my heart. And the last thing he said before we had really walked away or stopped talking for that day, he's like, "Man, you either leading them to the graveyard or you leading them to something better." And it just hit me, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because nowadays when I talk to a lot of these young people, I don't necessarily expect to get through the first time, but I just want them to hear me. Just hear me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I took the time to just hear him. I didn't necessarily feel him to the way he might have wanted me to feel the conversation, but he planted a seed. You understand what I'm saying? And that seed grew over time because I started to go on this quest, to this journey, to start educating myself again in prison. I started to get around brothers like Poetic, Jefferson Elliott, who's still fighting for his freedom. We got over 180,000 signatures for his freedom right now. Never caught a charge. Runs a nonprofit. I got around other positive brothers in there. Brothers that were part of different religious communities, so I could learn about different, you know, beliefs and cultures. I started learning about just the history or the science of humans, ourselves, you know, where we come from. And I went into that zone of growth. And I tell everybody, I don't know if I would have grown or even survived if I didn't go to prison. My mother, the last visitation before I went to prison, she told me, "Oh, I don't know if you know this, but I don't worry anymore now that you're in prison." And it threw me off because I was like, how could you say that? But what she was saying after the fact made sense. She said, "I used to hear those sirens, those ambulances, and I didn't know if you were in one of them. When you weren't home at night, I didn't know if you'd make it home, but at least I know where you're at." And that's the reality, man. Prison, at this period of my life, it no longer, I guess I started to make the decision that I wasn't going to allow it to destroy me. the way I was watching it destroy others. I decided to start fighting. I decided I was going to do something different. But don't get me wrong, I was still straddling the fence. I'm not going to lie. I couldn't let go completely of some of the stuff I was into. But I was starting to move on the right track. I was starting to get jobs working with counselors or staff dining, so I was able to talk to the officers more, which, again, in one way it was good because I was utilizing it to help people get my brothers and them jobs. But in another way it was bad because some of the same COs I was talking to, you know, we get the bill and they were still bringing me in the pack. And I was still justifying it. I was like, I'm going to get this work in. I'm just going to sell this amount. I'm going to make sure me and mines eat. You know what I'm saying? And I used to justify it in my mind, but it's the same mentality when I was in the streets. When I was in the streets, I had the same mentality prior to catching this case when I was hustling. I was like, yo, I'm just going to do this for this, but there's no wrong way to do a right thing. I learned that. You know what I'm saying? Time went by. You know, new situations occurred in the prison, but one thing about prison, it's like Groundhog Day, especially on a place like Sussex too. But I ended up, over the series of the next couple of months, just continuing to really just work hard, man, and focus on changing my mindset as much as I could. But man, there's always tests. You know, when people in prison see you trying to be positive, they are going to test you. When people in prison see you trying to do something right or move it, they're gonna swear that you faking and fronting or scared. And it seemed like when I started to do right in prison, that's when the real turbulence came. One day I was sitting there reading a book on the bench, minding myself, and I was just reading. It was a book about, I think it was a book about Christianity. Excuse me. It was a book, just a book about Christianity. And I read books from different religions, and this guy just walks up to me out of nowhere while I'm on the bench, and he's like, "I don't know why you reading that for. You ain't gonna ever use it. You just read." No, listen, I've never spoke to this guy before, but this is how prison is, man. People will see you doing something positive and come and try to your day up. And that's what was about to happen.